Welcome everyone to our class and our travels down 3,300 years of Jewish history. Okay, so we've finished around 2/3 of the time scale. We've 1,000 years are eaten up by up to the time of the Mishnah and then the Gemara, and then we have now another thousand years from the time of the Rishonim. So what we're going to do now is just the pivotal person in the Rishonim here is the Tur, because he's of course the son of the Rosh, and he writes the first Shulchan Aruch. So we're going to investigate now the Tur. We did the Beis Yosef. We'll go into the Tur, into the Bach, the Drish, and the Lavush, and then we'll go on to the Shulchan Aruch itself, B'ezras Hashem, and then we'll continue going down. So that's where we're holding. Just as a review, I made a little chart here. Okay. My aim here is to try to demonstrate the Masorah, how it works. And in this little piece, we have a four-way machlokus on what Reb Papa, on what the Gemara concludes. So the Rishonim that we're handling is the Rif, Rashi. It seems agrees with the Rif. We'll have a clear Rashi on what the halacha is, but it seems there are indications that he agrees, like in our Mishnah, that you can give meitav equally. Then we have the Rosh and the Ramah, Rabbeinu Tam, and then we'll do the Tur. And the Rambam is going to be here on the side because there's a big job understanding what the Rambam holds, and that's very, very important as we get involved in the halacha, because he's one of the three people that the Shulchan Aruch uses to make his final Pesach. So that will be very important to us. Simply speaking, we had Machlokus Reb Papa and Reb Huna about the issue of meitav. And the conclusion of Rabbeinu Tam was like Rav Huna, which we understood was that you can use kesef and meitav equally, and only when you don't have kesef and meitav can you use shavet kesef afilu subin. That was Rav Huna's position, according to how Rashi explained it, according to how Rabbeinu Tam understood it, and he clearly pesaks in Sefer HaYoshir like Rav Huna. The Rosh, the Rif holds clearly like Reb Papa. Whoops, I'm sorry. And the Rosh explains the Rif to say that all three elements are equally acceptable as a payback. That means Kesef and Yoshiv and Meitav are all equal alternatives for the Mazik to pay back his debt to Nizak. The Ramah, oops, I did the same mistake. The Ramah holds that Kesef is even better than Metaltalin. Metaltalin is better than Kesef. He's learning all that according to what we read in the Mukha Yosef from Reb Papa, because we said that Reb Papa did not mention Kesef Mefarish. So the Ramah will say, look, well, what's the svara of Reb Papa? Reb Papa was that Metaltalin was better than Meitav because it's more like money. So then, therefore, money should even be more like Metaltalin. So that's the Ramah. He holds Kesef is first, even though Reb Papa didn't say it, but he infers it from his explanation of Metaltalin versus Meitav. Then Metaltalin is second, and then he puts Meitav, which is the least close to Kesef, on the bottom, and that was his explanation of Papa. So the Rambam here is a problem because he does not talk about Kesef, and it's not even clear what case he's talking about. Because he starts talking about the Beis Din having to collect. So the simple way we understood the Rambam was that since he only spoke about Meitav and Metaltalin, is that Meitav is first and Metaltalin is second, because the Beis Din doesn't collect from the land until he doesn't have. And that's how we understood the Rambam. But the reason why he's unconnected is because he's unconnected. And there's going to be a lot of people talking about where he fits in. We'll have people fitting him into Reb Papa. We'll have people fitting him to Rabbeinu Tam. We'll have people having his own shita, a mix. So that'll be the excitement, because when we get down to the halacha, since he's such an important element of one of in the Shulchan Aruch, so we'll get down to him. Now we have to talk about the Tur, what the Tur holds. The Tur is problematic, just like the Rambam, because he sort of quotes the language of the Rambam, and he's also quoting the language of his father, the Rosh, and we have a big machlokas here, not of the Rishonim, but of the Nosei Kalim, of the Tur, what he actually holds. So we're going to go through all the Nosei Kalim together, Bezrat Hashem, but the Beit Yosef, which we did together, holds that the Tur holds that Kesef and Metaltalin are equal. He says that clearly, and only when you don't have Kesef Metaltalin do you give Meitav. Okay, is that correct in the Beit Yosef? 1 second, just think about that. Yes, that's what he says. Kesef and Metaltalin are equal, and that's a surprise. We haven't seen that position, and one of the big problems of the Beis Yosef is, where does the Tur get this from? It's not like his father, because his father puts Meitav equivalent to Metaltalin. So where does he get it from is the big question. And we learned the last time we got together, according to the Beis Yosef, he imported this relationship between Meitav and Metaltalin from the case of Balchov. There, in the case of Balchov, the Rosh, Tur's father, said that since the Malva loaned, he has the right to get money back. Comes along the Beis Yosef and says that seems anything that's closer to money. The Beis Yosef says, even though it seems if that's peculiar to Malva, because the Malva did give money, has a right to give money back, and everything closer to money, the Beis Yosef held that the Tur extended that din to the case of Nezikin. His father didn't. The Rosh says that all three are equal. He has to say that, as we learned from Rav Kahana. But the Beis Yosef says that the Tur went his own way, and he took what his father said about Balchov and imported that into Nezikin. So that meant that just like the Balchov had the ability to get Metaltalin and Kesef before Karka, because he gave money. So the same thing, the Nizak also has the ability to get Kesef or Metaltalin over Meitav. And that was the big, that was the explanation of the Beis Yosef. Who we're going to do today, I'll just give you a preview, is going to disagree. And he's going to say that the Tur is holding like his father, the Rosh, and what he said was that Kesef, Metaltalin, and Meitav are all equal. So that's going to be today's work, to analyze the Beis Yosef and the Bach. Okay, and if we have time, we'll go to the some other Nosei Kalim and see what they have to say. Okay, we see how beautiful this is, but how delicate and complicated it is, and how you have to really know exactly where you're holding in the map to keep it all together. And that's another thing that I'm trying to do by this visually visual ideas with Visio and stuff like that. My friend who's a graphic designer said, use Visio? I said, sure, how can you learn without Visio? I was joking with him. But that's the reality. That's it's very, very helpful. So here we are. Here are our Rishonim. Again, we have the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim here holding different opinions. We're going to be discussing the Rashi, Rabbeinu Tam, and of course the Rush, who moved with the Sfarad, and we're going to be discussing the Rif, the Rambam, the Ramah, the Rush, and the Tur. So now we're up to the Tur, the son of the Rush, and we're investigating his position. So here's the latest timeline. Here's the Tur, Rav Yaakov ben Ashur. He lives from 1269 to 1343. Then you see there's almost a 100-year break. I mean, the Tur was accepted as a Shulchan Aruch in Klal Yisrael, but we said that many times the Tur just brings down different shittas for Shonim and doesn't decide which way to go. So the Beis Yosef, later on the Shulchan Aruch, Yosef Cairo, uses the same setup of the Tur, but he brings a definitive halacha using the three great Rishonim, the Rambam, the Rush, and the Rif. And we said, unfortunately, for the Ashkenazim, that meant that it was heavily toward the Sephardic opinion, and the Ashkenazim there gave the Pesach, the Ramah, Rabbi Yisrael gave the Pesach according to the Ashkenazic opinion, and that's where we're heading. So here we have, it's very interesting, we're looking at the Nosei Kalim of the Tur. This is what's on the page of our printed edition. I'm sure we'll find other things in Hebrew books, but this is what's on the printed edition. It's basically on the Tur, the Beis Yosef, and then the Ramah, the Levush is not there, the Drisha and the Prisha, and the Bach. So Bach is always printed on side by side with the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef where Rashi usually is in the Gemara, and the Bach is printed on the other side. And then we have the Ramah on the bottom, the Darkei Moshe, and the Drisha and the Prisha. So we see it's very interesting that these distinguished rabbis are all from Ashkenaz. Just interesting to note that they wrote on the Tur, and they also, like Rabbi Moshe Shloss, is going to end up writing also on the Shulchan Aruch. So it's going to be very exciting to see them. Okay, so that's basically our orientation. Go ahead, please.
In between the death of the Tur and the birth of the Beis Yosef was when the printing press was invented.
Wow.
The printing press was invented somewhere around 1440.
1440, right. Okay, that also, that was a dramatic...
It was already proliferated throughout Europe, and there were printing presses all over the place.
That's fantastic. I mean, you know, the printing press was things like electricity. It was a gigantic step forward for the Jewish people. It meant that you know, you gained with the software's accuracy, but you also gained with the printing press because they had a lot of people doing Haggaot and stuff like that. But the most important thing was the ability to disseminate the Torah. Right. That was such an important thing. And now, to those people who know how to use it properly, the internet is doing the same thing. And that's basically what we're trying to do, and disseminate that Torah and get the system understood. And Baruch Hashem, now we have, I mentioned, Hebrew University has 95% of all the printed books ever printed in the world, if not the physical book, microfilm of all of it. So every book that was ever printed, they have a copy of it, 95%, which is pretty good. I was doing the Ramchal translation. We had a problem with that one part of the Ramchal, and we went to the library, and I asked, and they said that, I asked my friend's father, who's in England, who's a researcher, to go to the British Museum and get a copy, and he said, you don't have to go to the British Museum, the microfilm is right there in Hebrew University Library. So, I mean, so, Baruch Hashem. And now everything is going online, so. But the most important thing is to understand how to use the material. There's a live discussion here and a live analysis, and that's what we're trying to understand. Okay, so here was the Tur. I'm going to start with a very quick review. The Tur says, Keshabayim Ligos Linizak Nisko Rowan, when you come to collect damagers, you have to see. There's two possibilities. Im yesh lamazik metaltalin, vim ein lamazik metaltalin. Talks about two scenarios. If the nizak has or does not have metaltalin. Okay, if he has metaltalin, so then you don't go and collect from his karka. Ein yordan linechasav nimkor karkasav ali ten metaltalin. And he says clearly, the Tur, even if he has kesef, you can give metaltalin. Because kol mieli, here's our quote from Reb Papa, the kol mieli the metaltalin meitavhu. That's a quote from Reb Papa. So we see clearly that we have kesef and metaltalin equal, and the meitav is in a step after them. Now, what happens if he doesn't have metaltalin? So then you go to get the karka. The karka has to be, of course, the best. Of course, it says meitav karka, meitav Sedei Shalom, and also the Gemara concluded over there, according to Rebbe Kiva, that if the mazik zibris is equal to the best of the nizak, tough luck. If he has better stuff, AAA, great stuff, he has to give that. Meitav, according to Rebbe Kiva, means the meitav subjectively of the mazik. Okay, so the nizak doesn't have to accept it, he doesn't have to accept anything. He doesn't have to say zebras the nizak. He could say, I want your meitav of your meitav. That's what the Torah says. So you have to give him me'idishim nicha karkasav. Okay, now what happens if this is a case that we didn't see? And again, this is a very important to understand the Masorah. Those things which are understood are, as the generations go out, gone, have to be clearly written down. Of course, people can't think accurately or as accurately as they once could, but the Torah clearly states, it is ein ha-nizak yochol lomar lo ten li mi'idish ploni. The nizak can't say, I want it is A because it's closer to my field, and it is B. No. Elo shetoli ratzon ha-mazik li ten mashi yirtzeh. The mazik has the upper hand, Yad El Elyona. He can give him any one of the two. As long as it's idis, he can give him any one of the two. Aval, kasher mazik chofetz gam ken liten loa idis should be kesh. What happens if the mazik says, okay, I'll give you that place that's closer to your field? Then, but he makes a tanai. Ela shehi ata bezol. It's the winter. It's very cheap. It's, I'll have to end up giving you a lot more land because the real valuation of this land is very low now. So please, mamtin ad shid yarke, let's wait until I'll pay you till the land goes up in the springtime. V'omer im tirtza so kachena kafi masha tidlit kayer, and he says, look, if you want to buy it, the land that you want, I'm only going to give you at the higher price. So the din is ein shomen so with sarchli ten lo kafi mashahi shavahata. Whatever the mazik agrees to give has to be evaluated at the present time. That was a rejection of Abai over there, and that's the conclusion. Okay, so that was the tour. Then we went to the Beit Yosef. Beit Yosef comments on the tour, and the first part where you give, you don't take the karka before the metaltalin, and he says that if you looked at the Rush, which we did last time, you'll see that the Rush only said this in the case of Balchov. And there was a special reason over there in the case of Balchov, because since you gave him cash, you, the Malva, have a right to get back cash, which has no real significance to our case. But that's how the Beit Yosef says, the Udima Rabbeinu. So how are we going to understand the tour who puts metaltalin before meitav? So the Beit Yosef says Dima Rabbeinu Piron Nezikin appears in Balchov. There was a link that were made between Prius Balchov, where there is a preference of metaltalin over karka, and that preference was moved over to Nezikin. And that's the work of the tour, not of his father. Okay? V'dima Rabbeinu Prius Nezikin lip Prius Balchov. He made a comparison between Nezikin, paying back in Nezikin, and paying back in Balchov. Now, again, he says, Afal Pishiyesh chilik b'neihem, that kan lo omer arash ela Balchov, mishum dekevim d'suzah yohiv, jisi nilkak, ela And he says the Beit Yosef, Kaven de lo ishkach and the pligi rabbanan b'nehu, bahachi, so therefore lo pal ginan. That should be, if I do this correctly, just let me make these little commas here. What did I just do? There, whoops, sorry about that. We'll get all these things cleaned up here. Okay, I think we got it now. That's an important little comma there. So here's the svara of the Beit Yosef to explain the tour, according to how we understand. The came the lower shkach and the pli rabbanan beinai bahachi. We don't see anyone in the Gemara arguing about this point, whether Baal Chov is any different than Nezikin. So therefore, we're not going to make a distinction, and we're going to say whatever happens in Nezikin happens here, meaning that just like there's a preference in Baal Chov for things which are closer to money, and therefore Metatlan is before Karka, so too there's a preference here in Nezikin that Metatlan is better than Meitev Karka. And that's how the Beit Yosef explains the tour. Okay, now when it comes to the second part of the tour, that was the relationship we said between... Go ahead.
So the tour is that he decided to compare them.
Yes, exactly. A pure svara. A pure svara. There's no text, but it's a svara. We said, my friend also, Aaron Marks, very nice guy, he says everything is nodes and links. Okay, that's his expression. In a certain way, he's correct, you see, because it's the question of how you read the Gemara. Do you read it what's in front of you, or do you also read it in context of other places in Shas? So we see Tosfos does that all the time. He always gives us the dynamic between the different places, okay? So the Torah is saying the Beis Yosef is saying what the Torah has done is imported a din that we see in Baal Chov over to Nezikin, pure svara. Because all he sees, again, is the result. He sees the result that all of a sudden Meitav falls below Metatlan, and from the result you have to, and the Torah doesn't tell you why, he's just writing a halacha book, so you have to now again link it together with Shas, and we don't see anyone saying that in Nezikin. Okay, we see saying a lot of different things, but not that. Metathlon is better than Karka. No, we had them equal. We had Metathlon is worse than Karka, according to Reb Huna. But to say that Metathlon is better than Meitav, well, we never saw that up to what we read at this point. So neither did Beis Yosef. He says, wait, where did he get it from? So the Beis Yosef says, well, his father, the Rush, in the same paragraph talking about Nezikin, did talk about Baal Chov. And the Rush and the Tur, his son, said, look, I really believe that what's happening in Svara, what's happening in Baal Chov is the same thing that's happening in Nezikin. And we tried to say Svara a few times before. We said, well, maybe that in Svara what he's saying is that since in Nezikin you took the person's item away, and we said we're just looking at everything in terms of cash, so you actually took money away from him. So the Nizak says, you took my money away, I want money. Just like in Baal Chov, I gave you money, I want money back. And it's even worse than Baal Chov. In Baal Chov, at least the Malva says, I gave you money, so I have a right to take money back. But in Nezikin, I didn't even want you to destroy my thing. I would have been very happy with my cow, my field, everything you did. So you took money away from me. I want money back. I don't care the specific item. Everything is looked at in terms of cash, of evaluation. So that's how we wanted to explain in Svara how you can put the two things together. Okay, how you could say that the Malva is like the Nizak in the sense. Right? Because everything is cash, and you took my money away. I want money. I don't want junk. Now, the Rush, of course, will not say that. He disagreed that there is no connection to me that way. So this is the Torah. The Torah is also Rishon. He's allowed to put the Gemara together the way he likes. Okay? So that's the interesting and exciting work of the Beit Yosef to explain this really anomaly. We certainly didn't see it, and he didn't see it either, and he's saying, well, must have been, this is what happened. So he's putting that piece together. Very, very interesting. Okay, now here when it comes, so that's clear up to that point, right? Okay, so the second piece here is Mashketuv Afil Shesh Lo Kesev, so then you can even give him Subin. Here the Beis Yosef says, well, the relationship between Kesev and Subin, that's we learned from Reb Papa. Very interesting. Kesev and Subin. Excuse me?
We don't pass him like Reb Papa. He's not passing like Reb Papa or Yeshua, is he?
Yeah, except, yes.
Reb Papa and Yeshua say everything is all the same.
Not according to the Tur.
Do you think the Tur learns differently in Reb Papa and Yeshua?
Sure. According to the Beis Yosef, the Tur learns this way, that when here's our Reb Papa, okay, here's the Beis Yosef on Reb Papa, and he says, well, he learns Reb Papa very simply, that Kesev and Metaltalin, of course, are equal. That you don't need Reb Papa. I mean, you may need Reb Papa for, even though he didn't say it. But the fact that Meitav is less, that's how he learns Reb Papa. Because what did Reb Papa say? Reb Papa said, if we looked at his original words, right? What did he say? He said that, yeah, get the original words over there? Not really. Yeah, what does he say, the original words?
Get to that Amud. Here it is.
Keep going.
Is it everything?
All Mile is Meitav, right?
The Bar Me'ara.
Now stop. Now what does that mean, Bar Me'ara?
That the land does have different levels.
Oh.
There's a Meitav of land, and there's a less than Meitav of land.
Very nice. That's how you would like to learn it. But they'll tell you,
right. So
tell you that.
I'm learning. That means that everything is equal. Meitav Karka and Kesef and Metaltalin are all the same. Right?
Yes, that's how you would like to learn it. Right, and that's how we'll be learning according to Rush. But the Torah will tell you, Kol Mile Meitav Hu. Why is Kol Mile? Could you explain to me why it's all Kol Mile Meitav Hu?
So it's all Kol Mile Meitav Hu because everything can be converted into cash.
Exactly. So now it's equal to, it's very close to cash, right? But land in general is not close to cash. Right? It's not close to cash. So now, in order to get it closer to cash, the Torah says give Meitav. But that never will make it equal to cash, to the same level as Metaltalin. In other words, the Torah lowered the bar to accept Meitav. That's how the Beis Yosef is going to learn. The Torah. You see?
What was the language of the Torah? Go back to the language of the Torah.
Okay, let's look at the language of the Torah. Keshabayin ligbos lenizak nisko rowan im yesh lamazik metaltalin ein yordan lenichsav limkor karkasav eliten metaltalin. That's what he says.
So it's either, his first choice is either Kesev or Metaltalin.
Right.
Metaltalin, Subin, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
But
if he
doesn't have Metaltalin,
then
he goes down to get his car.
Yes, im ein lo metaltalin yordan lekarka idis menechasav. Only when he doesn't have metaltalin, of course Kesev either, then you go down to his meitav. So you say, well, who's that like? So he'll tell you, well, that's Reb Papa, because Subin is closer to Kesev than is Meitav. Now that really was the svara of the Ramah, by the way, if you remember. The Ramah actually said that svara. It brought Nemuka Yosef. He actually said that svara. And then he went so far as to put Kesev in front of Subin. Okay? Now, what is very important over here, okay, is what gives you the right to do that, you see? So to make everything equal is the shot in the Gemara, and that's what you read, right? In other words, we compensated with land that doesn't have ready cash and say Meitav, and that brought it up to the level of metaltalin, right? It brought it up to that level. Yeah. Call mile metaltalin, who anything you give is called great, but except for karka, and that's why the Torah said give Meitav karka, and that brought it up to the same level of metaltalin. That's how we learned. That's how we were always learning according to the Rush. Since the Beis Yosef sees the Torah doesn't hold that, he has to say, well, he moved. He learned the Gemara never moved Meitav up to the position of metaltalin. He just lowered the bar of what was called acceptable when it said Meitav, because it's less kesef than Yoshev. Now the question is, what gave him a right to do that? So the Beit Yosef says what gave him the right to do that was the sin that Nezikin had to Baal Chov. In Baal Chov, we give everything that's closer to money the preference. So metaltalin is before Meitav. So too, the Tur said that that's exactly what has to be Peshat in Reb Papa. Reb Papa doesn't exist in the vacuum. Reb Papa exists in the context of the Gemara. And since there's this link between the node of Baal Chov and Nezikin, we're going to have to push Meitav one step lower, says the Beit Yosef, and explain the Torah. But without the raya from Baal Chov, then there's no way you would do such a thing. You'd read the Gemara as you read it simply, and as the Rush is reading it, that everything is equal. But since the simple reading of the Torah puts Meitav down one step, the Beis Yosef has to find a reason. He says the only reason I can see is that he imported what his father said from Baal Chov and made an equation to Nezikin and shoved Meitav down one level and read Reb Papa as saying that. Although Reb Papa doesn't say it clearly, he doesn't not say it. All we know is Meitav is a compensation, but is it an equal compensation, or did the Torah lower the bar and accept Meitav as good enough to be included? Interesting?
Yes.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, but the Beis Yosef not doing it.
I think those prove that he's learning that like Rav Papa is what he's saying at the end here.
Yes, what did you just say? When it came to, that's how we got to it. That's where we mistake. We said in the second din.
Like I said, that you can give Meitav afterwards.
He learned the din that Kesef is equal to metaltalin, says the Beit Yosef, from Reb Papa.
Right, and ask first. Right. Right.
Right? So if he's learning from Reb Papa, he's learning from Reb Papa. He can't just learn half from Reb Papa. Right? So the fact that Kesef is equal to metaltalin, he learns from Reb Papa. Because what did Reb Huna say about metaltalin?
Rav Huna said, okay, so that's what I was just thinking about. Rav Huna said that it's either Kesef or Meitav, and in order to answer Rav Nachman's question, he had to say that it's only talking about B'dilesle.
Right.
Where, according to Rashi, it doesn't have Kesef or Sadais. Then you can give metaltalin. So clearly, according to Rashi, metaltalin is on a lower level
Right.
than Kesef and Sadais. So therefore, this can't be Rav Huna.
Right.
Because according to the Torah, he's learning that Kesef and metaltalin are on the same level.
Right.
According to Rav Huna, he's learning that Kesef and Sadais are on the same level.
Right. Beautiful. Exactly. So it can't be Rav Huna. Okay. And the only way we can make it Reb Papa is by saying that the Tur felt the same svara that we see in Baal Chov, moves into Nezikin, and pushes our understanding of Reb Papa to say that Meitav is one step less than metaltalin or Kesef. this is what this is what I call about the dynamics. You see, this is the dynamics of learning. That's what makes it so exciting, because there's a certain place where you have the given elements, but then they start interacting, pushing and pulling. It's like the atoms creating molecules. That means there's a tension between the different parts of the Gemara. Okay, so once you understand what the givens are, now it's a question of their relationship to each other, where you have a push and a pull. So this, by the way, is really the creation of the Beit Yosef, but he's forced to answer the question. I mean, he looks at the Torah, he says, where did he get it from? And he says, really, he's holding like Reb Papa, but there's a push from Baal Chov that pushes Meitav down one step. That's how he answers the question. Okay, and that's the excitement of the learning. It's not only finding what's said, but understanding the relationship between different parts of what's said and what the dynamic is. And that's going to have, that's a beautiful, we see a very important impact on the halacha here. But again, there's always gains and losses, no matter what you're going to do, because to do this, what the Beis Yosef did was split the Tur from his father and put him on his own track. Now, the Tur is a Rishon. He can go on his own track. He's not limited to what his father said. It's not patrimony here. I mean, he's a Talmud Chacham Adir, and he's a Rishon. He has a right to say what he wants to say, la halacha. But that's one of the weaknesses of this interpretation. Okay, so then we went a little further here. Again, the Torah says that you do an evaluation. Excuse me? Yes, let's go.
Do an evaluation.
The evaluation. That's just what he said here. He said, Reb Papa, when it comes to metaltalin, if you don't sell it here, you'll sell it somewhere else. So you would want to be mashmir. Okay, if the mazik gives the nizak metaltalin, let him go around, right? The Torah said, that Koni Reb Papa called mile meitavu. I just gave you meitav. What do you want for my life? You go running around and sell it. Comes along the Torah, says not so. No. The Beis Din does an evaluation of the metaltalin. He just doesn't give the metaltalin to the nizak, another chiddush. The Beis Din evaluates how much is this metaltalin worth and takes it off the bill. That's it. And how do they figure out the evaluation? What it's worth here and not. Not running around to all different shvukim and all over the world and trying to get a good deal. Okay? Now, that's what the Torah said. Where did he get it from again? You see? That's the whole problem here. Where no one can invent halachas. They're all just saying peshat in their understanding of the totality of Shas. So where did he get it from? So the Beis Yosef...
That's the basic part. And what would you think otherwise? You would have thought that
look, simply
you could say, okay, I'm going to evaluate it according to where you could sell it in Medina Sayyam. You have to take it to America and sell it there because over there they don't have, over there it sells so much more.
Wait a minute. The Gemara, Reb Papa said, what was the words of Reb Papa?
Reb Papa said,
Kol mile meitav hu. Why? So look, I'm giving you meitav, right? Now you go. If you can't sell it here, go sell it somewhere else. What do you want from me?
Okay, there we go. Okay, I forgot he said this word. So the question is, as you could have learned that what Reb Papa meant to say is that I could give you something that has a value elsewhere because that's a svara. Svara is metaltalin, may not have value here, but has value elsewhere. So I could calculate it according to the value elsewhere, even if you could sell it here.
Well, no, that far I won't go. But what I was saying that I don't know if I'll go that far. But let's take it step by step. First of all, no, the chiddush of the Torah is that first of all, there's an evaluation of metaltalin. That's a chiddush of the Torah.
Well, that's not. No, I would say that's not the chiddush. You have to evaluate it. That's pashut. Everybody understands you have to evaluate how.
Why? Give him the stuff. Okay, but I can give. You're right. Correct. You have to evaluate it, right?
I have to evaluate. Now the question is, Papa's words, which I wasn't focused on before, but now you brought it into focus.
Yeah.
Papa's words are, if you don't sell it here, you could sell it elsewhere. So I would have thought that if I can't, if that I as a mazik could decide that if something sells for 25% more in the next town over, I could say, Rav Papa says, go to the next town and sell it for 25% more, and I fulfill my obligation by paying what I need to pay, because Rav Papa holds I could force you to go to another town to sell it. Kamashma on the tour, they know that's not what Rav Papa meant. Rav Papa meant something else, but he didn't mean that you could force somebody to go to another town to sell it at higher value.
I clearly what you're saying.
So what's Rav Papa mean?
What's bothering me?
Rav Papa mean?
What's bothering me? What's bothering me is that I thought the only problem we had here was not the price of the item, but was the availability of buyers.
Right. Oh, so there's two problems. Problem number one is, can you convert it to cash? Problem number two is, how much cash will you get when you convert it to cash? Had we had Rav Papa alone without the tour, I would have thought that since Rav Papa's chiddush is that anything that's convertible to cash, the evaluation then could be for anywhere. It doesn't have to be here. It could be there too, because in order to be able to come up with the svara to make it convertible to step one, I could tell him to go somewhere else, because that's a svara. Even if it is sellable here, I could tell him to go somewhere else to get more cash. Kamashal on the tour, this is no. Rav Papa's svara is that the talisman is always convertible, that if you can't sell it here, I can give it to him because you could sell it somewhere else. But if you could sell it here, I can't force him to go somewhere else to get more money.
Okay, I hear 100% what you're saying. This is, I have to put my thinking cap on this now, because we have now two distinctions here: the demand and the price, and that has to be thought about in my head a little. I would like to think about it, but I clearly hear what you're saying, that the chiddush of the tour is that as far as the tour is trying to eliminate the havamina, that I could say, look, this stuff is worth, in America, or whatever, in Boston, it's worth, 20% more, so I'm giving you I'm paying you back now, and go to Boston, take care of it. Okay, and the tour is saying, not so fast. Come on, that's not what Rav Papa meant. Rav Papa was only talking about the demand. If there's no demand here, then you can go somewhere else. But he wasn't talking about getting a better price in 2,000 miles away. I mean, that also, by the way.
So Rav Papa, now just think about Rav Papa for a moment.
Yes.
Do you think the Nizik is going to be happy with that? That the Mazik tells him, listen, I'm giving you something in the surrounding area here. This has no value. You can't sell it. Even if you tried, nobody's going to buy it. But in the next town over, somebody's going to pay you for it. So I'm going to give you a talisman that has value in the next town, and I'm forcing you to go to the next town to sell it.
Well, and Isaac is not going to be happy with that. That's for sure.
I know. So what kind of svara?
But the Torah said that Yashiv, a Filu Subin.
Ah, so you think it's a chiddush in the Torah then?
And now you push it back to the Torah, exactly. And that's, well, it's all, I mean, and Chad Gad Yo, okay, there we are again. What does Meitav mean? Right? So, but he says, yeah, that's what the Torah said. The Torah is lowering the bar and giving more advantage to the Mazik and saying, you can give Kesef, you can give Metaltalin equally to it, But that's, of course, a hassle for the Nizak. He doesn't want Metaltalin. He may, it just so happens that he may want Subin. He may, but most of the times that's a strain for him. What does he want Subin for? He's going to go sell it, waste his time, whatever. Okay, so we've raised a few interesting questions here also, which is also what's called the value of something. That's in other words, if you're here, you have to also factor in. That's why I thought, let's say you're in Yerushalayim, the guy says, well, and there's a famine over there in Vietnam, so you can go take it there and make a killing, and therefore I don't owe you very much. I mean, there has to be in Svara a limit to what I can say what the stuff is really worth. At a certain place, the time and the effort starts impinging on what the price of the thing is. You know what I mean? So we also have to.
he would reduce the travel expense from
Exactly.
the total amount that he's paying him back. So if,
Right.
if he has to get on a train and the train ticket is $25 and he owes him $100, does he have to give him a talcum worth $125 in order to cover the travel expense?
Exactly. Now the reason why I see in Reb Papa's statement, he only talks about the imlo mazdin b'masa, right? He says that Masa is a city. If I don't sell it in this place, in this city, I can pay in the city. But it doesn't mean, it didn't say if it's if you can't mizdabin b'medina elu, you know, you can mizdabin b'medina acheres. Right? There has to be a limit of what we, in other words, to find a buyer, there has to be a certain amount of, a limit that we put on what's called finding a buyer. Right? I mean, we're talking about a delicate balance here. You know, you do have land, you do have buyers for it too, but, you don't have as many. So we're increasing the amount, and we have to say, well, you go to we have a small city here, go to a bigger city and a bigger city and bigger. I mean, so those are pressing the point of the halacha. You see, those are the points that people later on have to explain to us. Okay, because these people, again, I mean, the tour, when he wrote the tour, I believe it was him, he wanted to go over every 30 days, all the halachas. That's why he wrote it. It was like a kitzur for him to do a quick chazara, so there's a lot of the give and take and out, and there's also some gedarim are also left out that are supposed to be understood. You can't write down everything, but the book will become again bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But these are the type of problems that the achronim have to handle, okay, and they will. We just talk about it. So we're not yet done. We're only around 2/3 through, right? We only did around around 2,000 years so far, right? So we have another 1,000 years to go. So the excitement will build. But here we see what the Beis Yosef is doing. He's saying, look, I don't know where the Tur got this. It's not simply his father. Where did he get it? Oh, so there's something his father did say about Baal Chov. And the Tur felt that same svara that exists in Baal Chov exists over here in Nezikin, and we try to explain that. Okay, very good. So let's go a little weiter in the Tur and the base Tur. And here's exactly what we're at. What does it mean? You have to pay right? Now there he says Lashon Harasham. When you do give metaltalin, vafel gab amrinon kol mile metafu afilu sudin yesh l'shum kol mashim shum shiochol ava limkoro miyad uba also makom afilu mebeso. Notice again, what did the Rush talk about when he talked about the shuma being here and now? He spoke about Baal Chov. He did not speak about Nezikin. Here's a quote of the Rush. The first thing that the Beis Yosef does, he's very open, honest, upfront. He says, look, this that you have to do a shuma here and now is what the Rush said about Baal Chov. And he quotes him, and that's what the Rush said. V'lo yitzterech l'sabei years of shukrim de'im. Lo kain, says the Rush, nilas delis mifnei ha-lovin. So this, that we don't tell the Malva to go to the next city and go sell the stuff, is because we don't want to nilas delis mifnei ha-lovin. What does that have to do with the mazik again? Right? Oh. Yes. Exactly. That totally irrelevant. Umashman Rabbeinu, says the Beis Yosef, the hu adin l'nezikin. Va'afal pish yesh chilik b'neihem. Why? Dal korcha lo amar harash ela b'Baal Chov mishum delo tinas delis aval b'nezikin lo shayachai taima lo mashman Rabbeinu the lo plige Rabbeinu b'neihu le'inyan zeh. We didn't see anyone that argued that there should be this chilik in Shuma between Baal Chov and Nezikin. So if we can find it, if there's a svara in Nezikin that impacts on, if there's a svara in Baal Chov even though it seems as particular svara, the Tur disagrees with his father and says the same svara, the same shuma exists in Nezikin. That's what he says. I mean, what can he do? I mean, again, but it's all the Beis Yosef is trying to make sense of the Tur, especially when his father gave specific reasons why they shouldn't be. So he says the Tur disagrees with the Rosh, disagrees with his father. He says also in Svar the same thing happens. Now, of course, we don't see anyone arguing about this point. Well, that's a negative proof, that's a negative proof. We don't see anyone arguing about it. So therefore, I'll put the two things together.
How would Ramchal do something like this? This is not a pure logical Svar, is it? It's just it's not discussed.
No, so you have no raya against. He's saying if there was a chiluk to be made in the shuma, someone should have said it. That's what he's saying. That's how he's defending he's understanding the Torah. The Torah is saying if there was a distinction in the shuma between Nezikin and Baal Chov, someone should have said it. And we don't see that anyone ever made any distinction, so we'll put the two things together. His point also. So he says you're not going to say I'm wrong because you won't find any Gemara, and the reason why there's no Gemara that clearly talks about the distinction between Baal Chov and Nezikin on this point is because they're the same. So again, you see, it's a very difficult, it's a very subtle thing. The Torah did make a distinction between Nezikin and Baal Chov when it came to Meitav. That it did do, but the Beit Yosef wants to say in other issues not so. So the other issues we're going to put Baal Chov together with Nezikin. If that's true, so why did the Rosh have to say it? Because he disagrees with his father. That's what you have to say.
Yeah, so even the Svar of Leiston Delph and Lovin does not apply at all to Nezikin. He's saying it's not mashma to the Torah that there should be any difference.
Exactly.
The Svar applying to a halva, they could say the same Svar to Nezikin also, but somebody said, make a difference.
That's what he says. Again, if you ask the Beis Yosef, he's in a difficult situation to explain the Torah, right? I mean, he's trying very, very hard to make sense of the Torah, because L'chara, the Rosh said you needed a Chiddush in Baal Chov to make such a distinction. There was a Chiddush to be made. So he's going to say, well, the Torah felt that that wasn't exclusive to Baal Chov. Baal Chov, Nezikin is just like a Baal Chov, another svara. What is Nezikin? I damaged something, but basically I owe you money, not because I bought something, but because I took something away from you. So if I owe you money, what's the difference if I owe you money because of a chov or not? So, okay, that's what he says. I agree, and he agrees, and everyone will agree this is a difficult way to explain the Torah. And because of that, we're going to now go, into an alternative explanation of the Torah. Okay? But that's what the Beis Yosef felt was Peshat in the Torah. Okay? Now, you have to understand also, remember I told you the Rambam is hanging around here in the shadows. Right?
Right. We have to go back to him and analyze it a little bit.
Yeah. So, and he also says this type of language. Kesher based in Tzarek Ligvot, he says a similar language to the Torah. So in the background over here is the Rambam lurking. And we know that the Beis Yosef has a propensity to Pesach like the Rambam, and so he could be reading, I'm just saying as a possibility, the Rambam, he's putting the Rambam together with the Torah, and he's going to say that these are the svaras in the end of the Rambam. You have to, what we say here in the Torah is going to impact on the Rambam. So we have the same type of svaras in the Rambam. The only problem with the Torah here is that his father said differently and gave different reasons, but the Rambam was open. He didn't make any connections. So, but that's what we're doing. that's the learning, okay? The links, the nodes, the links, and the whys. Great. So let's go a little weiter. Okay. That's a Mishnah. Now here's an important thing they didn't get involved in. We're going to have to do that at some point. If you don't have metaltlin, you're Yordan Lakarkas Idish Minichasav. Only when you don't have metal. Now I said that was Reb Papa, right? But look what what did the Beis Yosef say? It says a Mishnah in Reish Perek Nezikin.
Okay, what did they do in the Mishnah?
Oh, okay. So we're going to have to do work on that. Okay, we're going to have to Mishnah. Please, send me an email. We're going to have to look at that Mishnah, because the fact is, unlike what I said, Reb Papa is he said that he learned it from Baal Chov, but now he's saying metaltalin is better than karka. He learned from the Mishnah over there in Memches. So we're going to have to get into that. That's going to be a little bit problematic, because he said that the Torah learned the din of Nezikin from Baal Chov, and that Mishnah has nothing to do with Baal Chov. Okay. Not that I know of. I mean, I shouldn't be so quick, but we have to do that. Okay, so let's go down a little weiter here and just finish. But please remind me, send me an email. We must go to this together and look at what's over there. Okay, now, okay. Umashkil v'afilu im zibris the mazik tova. Let's read again. Umashkil v'afilu im zibris shel mazik tova ki'idish shel nizak ein makabel mimenu elitzok shiten lo me'idish shibakarkasav. And he says that is Reb Papa. That is Reish Perek Baba Kama. It's not Reb Papa. That's clearly Rebbe. That's clearly Rebbe Akiva, who argues with Rebbe Shmuel. That's what the Beis Yosef is going to say. Tana Rabbanan, he quotes the whole thing, the argument of Rebbe Shmuel and Rebbe Akiva, and the halacha, he says, the Beis Yosef is with Rebbe Akiva neged chavaro. That's the rule. When Rebbe Akiva argues with one person, the halacha is like Rebbe Akiva. When he argues with chavarav, a group, the halacha is not like him. So that's that. Now let's look at the Bach together, okay? And now we're going to see a whole new approach in the tour. So, do you have some time there for that? Yeah, okay. So let's at least start the Bach, okay? If you have only a few minutes, should I read or you want to read? 10 minutes. Okay, so let you read it. It's much better if you read it now, okay? So this is the Beit Chadash.
Doesn't he tell Shimon Ligvay? Okay. Extra hay in there. Near the Rabbeinu Lamad Lifsei Kach Me'ahid Parakan Bava Kama. The Torah learned the pasuk in this way from the Gemara in Reish, in the first parak of Bava Kama. The Rami Le Abai Le Rabba. Don't we have Rava? But anyway. Kasav.
Wow. First of all, I have to see if that's a mistake in the text.
Yeah, we have Rami Le Abai Le Rava.
Yeah, but what did the Bach say? Bach.
It says here in this text Le Rabba.
No, what's in front of us is Rabba itself.
Oh, but it's Rabba, right?
Have the tour there? No.
I don't have it handy. I could pull it up.
Okay, but let's look that up also. I should have opened it up. I don't want to take the time, but that's a very good observation. Good. Kasameda Sudeo. Go ahead.
Kasameda Sudeo in Midi Achrina Loi. I Vartani Yarshul Rabba Shavakas Rafilu Subin. So they're asking the Rumiya between the two Pesukim. Va'asik Rapapa, Va'afuna Bredi Yeshua, Kol Mila Meitatu. Good, so that's a paraphrase. It's not odd. He went from the beginning of the Gemara to the end of the Gemara.
Right, he paraphrased.
Alma, the metalman have its same mate of Mikarkai. So he's saying from this, it's clearly Alma, which is like Mashma, that metalman is better Meitav. Better Meitav, I don't know if you could say those words, better Meitav. It is better than Karka. Afilu Subin, even Subin would be better than Karka.
So let's go slowly. He says, Alma, the metatlan have a tvei Meitav Mikarke.
Right.
Now that's, of course, a interpretation of what Reb Papa said.
Right.
Now, of course, if you hold that, then you can come to what the Torah is going to say in a minute, right? But that's a chiddush. That metaltlin have a tvei meitav mikarkei.
Right.
Okay, vafilu suben. That's what he says.
Right. Vafilu suben. V'av bisha nizik chafetz yosef bekarka.
Oh, I'm just
So
going
he's
to...
saying, 1 second, what's this apple P? How does he know that? Why is the nizik want karka better? Is that a svara?
No, let's say he wants. Let's read the whole, let's read what he says.
In other words, he's saying, he's not saying this as a kolal, he's saying this as a
It's a parish. He's now explaining, no?
Oh, he's saying, yeah, where the nizik wants karka, the mazik could tell him, I will give you, according to your din, of meitav, which is metalpli, even subin, and not karka. So what he's saying is the nizik can't demand karka.
Right.
Because the obligation of the mazik is to give meitav, and meitav is metalpli, even subin.
Right. So if the nizak says, I want meitav karka, the pasuk says, I get a right to meitav karka. What is this subin around here? The mazik says, I'm sorry. Reb Papa explained to us that call metaltlin is called meitav. I'm giving you meitav. Don't bother me.
Right.
Right?
Right. But what if the mazik doesn't have metaltlin? Yavla meitav todehu. I know idyas. Then he gives him meitav todehu, which is idyas.
So you notice, look what he did so subtly here. He reads the Gemara to say that metaltlin is meitav tvei. Meitav tvei. And therefore, if he gives metaltlin itself, then he has to accept it. And if the mazik wants 1 second, and only if he doesn't have metaltlin, right? Because does he have to give his idis? That's all, again, an interpretation of the Torah, explaining how the Torah would understand Papa. Different than, of course, what the Beis Yosef is saying. Aval, let's just read through once, and we have to go through this again. Aval.
Aval in the mazik chafetz litin karka. Let's say the mazik wants to pay karka. But nizik chafetz l'metaltlin, einan nizik yachal l'kaifai. The nizik can't force him to give the metaltlin. Now, a nice one like idyas karka isav. Well, so we didn't see this ever before, I don't think.
No, it's a
We're
chiddush.
talking about a case where the nizik is demanding the metaltlin, which is really his right, and the mazik says, I have metaltlin and I have karka, but I want to give you only karka. So the nizik cannot force him to give metaltlin, but he has to give them the karka. Why? Because he has a pasuk of meitav zei meitav kama yishalim. But how does this work? It sounds like it's a steer to what we learned until now.
Why?
Because the din Torah that we're learning from meitav zei and meitav kama yishalim, in order to answer the steer of Yashiv, we came to the conclusion that metaltlin is better than karka. That means that the one who gets damaged, the nizik, has a right to demand what the Torah says that the first preference should be. Why should we take away that right from it?
To the nizak or the mazik? What?
The nizik was the one who got damaged. So now he received, by the virtue that he got damaged, he gets certain rights. Right? He didn't ask for this situation. He didn't put himself into this situation. He got put into the situation bal karchai. And the Torah, because of that situation, the Torah gave him certain rights. What is the right? The right is to get paid back, and the right is to get paid back with metalplin.
That's
right.
That's right. That's old think, but that's not new think. This is the Beit Chadash, the Bayit Chadash. Think differently.
How does he take away? So how does he take away? So on the one hand, you see, but the Bach is agreeing that when the when it's up to the mazik, that the mazik first could give him metaltalin, and then give him karka. And if the nizik wants karka, which is not his right to receive karka.
We're talking about, according to the Beit Chadash, that the nizik has no rights here. The Torah gave all the rights to the mazik.
All the rights to the mazik. That's what it seems.
That's what he's saying. It's again, think differently. Yes, think differently. The mazik has all the rights to give what he wants. The chiddush is of Reb Papa, the chiddush of the Torah, is that the mazik, when he gives metaltalin, even subin, is fulfilling the din Torah of giving meitav. If he gives meitav karka, of course he's fulfilling the din Torah of meitav karka. So he can decide, and we're going to have to read this into the Torah again, he can decide what he wants to give. But the Torah, he's saying, was not talking about, let's read the next piece. Umizeh, I should have read that. The Torah didn't talk about this case.
He didn't talk about this. In other words, why? Because it's pizza in the zikin that it's up to the mazik to pay back with what he wants to pay back.
Yes.
Why is that so pashut? Because the mazik has...
What he learns the pasuk is that the Torah is lowering the bar on the mazik. It says to you, Mr. Mazik, you have to pay this debt back. Now, you can give kesef, you could give metaltalin, or you can give meitav karka. You have a right to... The Torah is lowering the bar on what we allow the meitav to give back. It has nothing to do with the demand of the nizak. It all has to do...
but the mazik doesn't have complete right to choose.
Only in one thing. What? Only one thing. He can't give back Baininus and Zibris land.
Well, but he can't give back meitav when he has metaltalin.
He can't give back meitav. Sure he can. Sure he can.
Oh, you think Allah Mala is a covers least in like karka, but is a covers in metaltalin, and is a nechol karka, and that's not aegis karka oisav. No, but doesn't he agree that Ella, what's number 4? Ella, the ain line metaltalin. Yav line meitav today dying of aegis. So what's the Ella? You shouldn't say that at all, because according to number 5, it's completely the right of the mazik to give whatever he wants. So why is he saying number 4?
Well, let's read him. You're asking 100% correct, and the Bach is going to address himself to that. Okay, you're asking 100% correct, and we have to say the way we're going to have to really work on understanding how the Bach read the Torah. It's very, very delicate here. It's nothing like the Beit Yosef read it, Bechlal.
Right.
So what we could do is we're going to have this Bach very carefully. Let's just go through a little more. If we have a few more minutes, just to get our first,
yeah, for sure.
just to get our first reading, okay? Just to get our first reading, okay? And then we have to go back again. It's a very, very subtle thing he's doing because he's reading the Torah in a special way. But he's saying, first of all, he's saying that the mazik has yad al-yona. He can decide what he wants. He can give either land or he can give metaltalin. So you're asking, so what is it? What does it mean, the yellow? Very good. Okay. Now let's read. I didn't do this like I want to do it. Broke it up properly. But anyway, what does he say? Lo kasav harosh. That's hey.
The Rush, when he wrote the dinim.
And he gave a precedent of metaltalin. In other words, the person who is receiving the payback has a demand. Read it, please. Read it. I don't want to read it. You read it.
Shakol Midi the Makav loses its faith by a metalton. So that's the right of the Malva to receive back Zuzi, which is what he gave to the Leiva. So
Right.
that's what the Rosh wrote about Baal Chayv. Ava ben Ezekin, ein ha-nizik yachal ha-kaifai litin le-metalton. By Nezikin, the nizik cannot force the mazik to give him metalton. Why not?
Okay.
Because there's no reason to give him preference.
Exactly.
The Nizikataina, I was not looking for being damaged. I was minding my own business, and this guy came over and damaged me, so now why should I suffer twice? But I got damaged, and I'm getting paid back with illiquid payment. I guess the Torah says that he has the right to give back metalton, so he has to get metalton.
But also remember, and the Torah only talked about the special relationship that the Malva, who was equal to the Nizak, right here. Remember, in our relationship, the Malva and the Nizak are together in the same boat. They're trying to get their money back, right? So the Rush only said that the Malva has special force here to get metalton over Karka because of Nilas Delis. But the Nizak has no force here.
Right.
It means the Mazik has all the cards in his hand. What did it? It was a special din that existed only for the Malva, not to close the door in his face. But normally, get out of here. I can give you what I want. The Torah says that once the Torah said that Kesef was equal to metalton, it was equal to Meitam. I give what I want. It's all that the Torah said. Whatever, right? And this is exactly what the difficulty was that the Beit Yosef. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's saying, come on. You know, I mean, let's learn simply, straight. The Rush had a special reason why the Malva has a reason to get back metalton first, but the Nizak doesn't have that reason.
Right.
No, the Mazik has all in his hands. Okay? And read a little weiter. Too bad I didn't do this work enough. Okay. Yeah.
The Torah is only talking about where the mazik wants to give metalton. That's where he's discussing the issue that the mazik has a right to give metalton. So in other words, when is it providing his din? When the mazik wants to give metalton and nizik doesn't want to take metalton, then Torah says, no, mazik, you have a right to give metalton, nizik, you have to take metalton.
It's fantastic. Yeah, but in the river.
Right? Well, let's say
no, but even in the river. No, he didn't talk about he said the Torah didn't talk about that case because that's obvious.
Right, he didn't talk about. Why did he talk?
He said because that's obvious. Why is that more obvious in this case? Because the pasuk.
Let's just talk about what is the other. Right. The other case would be where the mazik wants to give karka, and the nizik wants metalton. Right. So that he's not talking about. Why is he not talking about that? Why is that obvious that the nizik has to take the karka then? Because it's understood that his. Why is it understood?
He has no taina. He can't pull out the pasuk. He can't pull out the pasuk mate of Sedeh, mate of Carmel.
Right.
So let's go a little weiter. There's only one paragraph.
The like in Aaron Beis Yosef, the Haven Midivrei Rabbeinu, the Kavanasan Loimar, the Kafinon Leila Mazik Litin Lemetalin. The Beis Yosef understood from the Torah that we forced the Mazik to give metalton. The whole lesson. So this is really summing up the Bach Shita, that the whole idea is that the Mazik is Yodel Al Yain to give either metalton or karka at his preference. Not like the Beis Yosef was learning the Torah that we forced the Mazik to give metalton.
Right.
Because the priest is the Yad HaMazik Al Yaina, the Kachma pushed the Divrei
Harav Magid.
Reish Pei Aleph, Reish Perek Aleph the Chayvel, Uve Perek, Uve,
I don't know. We'll prepare something. But we have to look, again, that's work we have to do. Okay, because again,
Right.
we have to look at the Rambam. You see, because then again, you see, he's also sort of Megala all the hidden things here, the Bach.
Right.
You know, because I said, we said we have the Rambam lurking in the background over here, because it seems as if the Torah is saying the language of the Rambam. So the Bach is saying, look, if you look at the Rambam and the Meforshei Rambam, there are also, at least some people, people he quotes, are going to be learning it like I'm learning. Okay, but this is extremely exciting. We have work here to do. Is to look at some sources. We have to look at the Gemara and Baba Kama later on, right? What was that where he quoted? Didn't get. Right. And we have, but before we do all the background research, I'm on the mission in a second. Before we do all the background research, we have to be very clear what the Bach did. Okay, because everyone has a difficult job here to explain the Torah. If the Torah would have said everything is equal, we would have walked away. We would have all been happy. So the Torah is saying something unusual here. So we have to now fit him into the Gemara. There's no one's making up new halachas here. So so everybody's going to have a plus and a minus. So we have to really, really clearly understand what the Beis Yosef did to solve the problem, and clearly understand what the Bach does to solve the problem. Okay, and then we'll look for the rayas. Okay, the background information over there, and see the force proofs. Okay, but it's getting very exciting, right? I mean, who would think that Maitland said that? My wife keeps saying, well, maybe you should learn something new. You know what I mean? But it's a very, when you start appreciating the dynamics of what's going on, it becomes very exciting. It just takes time to do the work. I mean, it doesn't. Okay, if you're the Vilna guy, you can do it quickly. But to really appreciate the beauty of what's going on, these are very, very powerful men who are very deeply involved in the Gemara and know what's going on, and they're explaining different dynamics, and to just behold that already is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay, Beseder. Okay, we'll stop here.
Very good.
Have a great week. What's left of it?
Thank you very much.
Good Shabbos. Call to.